Hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. And we're live. And I have as my fabulous guest here, is it Gabrielle or Gabrielle?
It can be either or. You
Either.
go with what's
Okay.
comfortable.
Okay, Gabrielle's probably either because I don't want to call you Gabriel, like
Yeah.
like the angel. Um,
Yeah.
but you are an angel. You are an angel.
Thank
So
you.
hello.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you for being here and for reaching out. We don't know I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm just here and we have some amazing people in the chat that are here to support you, Gabrielle, and yeah, whatever you have to share, we're here to listen today. And if anyone has been living under a rock, if you want to just introduce yourself and doesn't know who you are, you can just give us a short intro and then we'll get started.
Sure. So, my name's Gabrielle, and I was in Scientology for about 26 years in Canada, specifically in the Vancouver organization. And I got in when I was in my early 20s, and I went down to Toronto, or not Toronto, to LA for some training. I spent about a year and a half there. And then I came back, and there was a period of time where I was just sort of being a regular staff member. And then I ended up becoming the executive director for the Church of Scientology of British Columbia, which wasn't fun. Anyway, so there was a lot that went on, obviously, in 26 years.
Yeah.
And I ended up in the area of HCO, which is the Hubbard Communications Office. So that's where all the ethics and justice are done. It's like they call it the personnel office, but you sort of have to throw in there that it's the ethics and justice. So you're dealing with ethics and justice. And people get declared, and people get, like Jeff. I dealt with Jeff a lot in HCO, and when anybody's having a problem or isn't doing the right thing, isn't towing the party line, I was the one that had to handle them and get them back on the rails, and back into session, back into their auditing, or back into the course room, and with staff. I handled staff as well, so I was the only one doing that.
Mhm.
So then I got really sick, and I had to leave post because I had an autoimmune disease. And as I got out and was sort of nursing myself back to normal, I started to sort of realize that this wasn't a good thing for me. It was extremely stressful, and I was very unhappy. And then I had a conversation with my husband, who had apparently read not apparently, but he read the Debbie Cook letter back in 20, whatever it was. Now, this is around 2013. And she pointed out a bunch of stuff that was not kosher in the organization. And so he had basically left. In his mind, he had left 2 years prior to this conversation I had with him. And so we just decided to leave the organization. And we made an attempt to sort of stay under the radar. But unfortunately, I spoke to my sister in an attempt to get her out. Interesting plot twist, eh, Marilyn?
Yes.
I tried to get my sister out, and she subsequently turned me in. And from there, we got declared suppressive people. So, and 10 years or whatever, now 11 years later, here I am speaking out.
Yes. And I'm glad you are. And I'm glad to know you and that you're here. And you are very brave. Um, yes, I know this isn't easy. Um, I I talked to you. We talked yesterday, and I think that the situation with Miriam Francis coming out and telling her story. As we were talking, Gabrielle, I realized, that there are so many Miriams out there, not only in Scientology or out of Scientology, but other cults as well. And I am just so honored to know so many that are able to come out and tell their story and be another of the voices, because there is power in numbers. There's power in telling the truth, and there's also safety in numbers, because I know that there's a lot of shame, a lot of fear, and a lot of unfortunately backlash and attacks against victims. And so I just want to provide this space for you to tell your story. People in the chat, I know, are here to support you. And thank you to the mods that are watching over the chat. Everyone, please be respectful. And let's make this about Gabrielle and her story and exposing these abuses. And particularly, we're focusing on Scientology Canada. Eh?
Yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, I've told a good portion of my story. There's I started off on Alex's channel, and I did that because he was the only other guy from a Class 5 organization who was talking about it. Everybody else, Aaron and all those wonderful people, they were talking from their Sea Org experience. Now, I did have what I would consider, and I think a few others would consider, a Sea Org experience while I was down in LA training. But most of my time was spent in a Class 5 organization. So it's a little bit different. Thank you, hippie chick. That's really sweet. So I don't know if people understand the difference. Do you want me to get into a quick explanation of it?
If it's part of, yeah, it's
It
up
is
to you,
kind of
honey.
pertinent, yeah.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
basically, in a Class 5 organization, you're not a Sea Org member. You sign either a 2.5-year or a 5-year contract, and you go home at night. You don't get paid. I mean, the pay fluctuates. It's not like a set rate like it is in the Sea Org. I mean, not even that's a set rate, but just for our purposes, we'll say, in the Sea Org, you get like whatever it is, $50 a week. In a Class 5 org, you get it's a unit system. So it's a bit of a complicated system, but you get a percentage of what is divvied up in the org. And it's usually very little, because everything that comes off the top is going up to management. So from looking back at it now, it probably goes all into the international churches' pockets. So anyway, I mean, there's times where you would get 50 cents. And there was one time I even got around $200. But I was there 7 days a week. And you're there from 6 till, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, 6 till about 10 o'clock. That was the schedule, but you're usually there till 12 or 1. And that's during Monday to Friday. And then weekends, you're there from 9 a.m. to 6. Now, because you don't make hardly any money, and it fluctuates so much, you have to have a job outside the organization. Right. And they call it moonlighting. And moonlighting is frowned upon. There's references about it. Hubbard talks about discourages moonlighting, but as necessary. The whole point of being a staff member is that you should get the organization up to a point where it can actually pay you. So that's why if you're moonlighting, that means you're not making things go right in the org, and basically fulfilling the purposes of Scientology. Right? You're not doing your job, in other words. That's essentially what it is.
So let me get this right. So they're basically saying that you're putting in all this labor for pennies on the, an hour. And if you have to have a job to support yourself, that's bad because I mean, they're going to pay you. It it doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
No,
They just want
no.
you
So
to
it,
yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy.
you just are supposed to um, give everything you've got. What is this? Moonlighting? I saw
Oh
is
yeah,
not. Yeah, that's right. It's not
not
putting in
putting
enough
in
effort. You're not making it go right. You're out ethics. That's, the other
yeah.
phrase that is used.
Eileen says it
Um,
yeah, it sounds more like gaslighting because who's to say if that they ever are gonna pay you enough to live on, right?
right. And the funny thing is with these whole ideal orgs, I'm sort of jumping all around. You know, the way it's presented even to the staff is like you get to be an ideal org, and don't forget there's a lot of orgs that are not ideal, right? There's quite a few, and Vancouver's one of them.
None
But
of them sound very ideal to me, but
yeah, exactly. So there's this carrot that's sort of
Mhm.
dangled in your face going, if
Yeah.
you work hard enough and become ideal, all your problems will be solved. You'll get your staff pay and stuff like that, right? And it's all bullshit, of course. But
Yeah.
so this is how they keep your hope alive, and why you keep going. It's like, oh, we're going to be an ideal org, we're going to raise the funds for it, blah blah blah. um so this is the struggle, right? You're on this position post in Scientology for 7 days a week, and then you also have to work. So which is one of the reason I got so sick, because I just started my own cleaning company, and I tried holding down second job to, yeah.
Yeah, well, every day is opposite day in the cults is what always say, is that moonlighting, yeah, is usually a second job,
Yeah,
not yeah.
yeah, but
Like,
for me,
that's what's supporting you is not your moonlighting job.
yeah, and
What's
my
supporting you is
husband,
your main job,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, there was like, people lived in poverty, right? Unless they had like a really good whatever self they were self-employed, and and that's why I started my own cleaning company, right? And I mean, but this wasn't until I was in my 40s. So all that time I spent basically just mostly in the org. I had a career in the bank. I was moving through the ranks nicely, and then in order to join staff, I quit my job. So yeah, I mean, in that 26 years, I could have actually developed a really good career. And I could
Mhm.
have, I'm 50, what am I, 57 now? Like, I could have been nicely retired, even though, now I was forced to retire because of health issues.
Yeah, hippie
But
chicks are
anyways,
working yourself sick.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's what a lot of people, had to do, unless you were supported somehow. And my husband supported me a great deal. I mean, he drove a city bus, so it's a union wage, and, we managed to keep, buy a house and stuff. But like, there wasn't a lot of money for anything else. Forget any holidays. And it was also one of
Mhm.
the reasons why I never had kids. It's like, how do I raise children in this kind of environment? I was brought up with two parents, and both worked, and we had it okay. We were kind of middle class. So, and that sort of ties into the whole idea of kids in Scientology. And there are a lot of kids that grow up in the halls, and Jeff will vouch to this. They grow up in the halls of Scientology, because all the parents can do is, all the parents are doing is trying to keep a roof over their head, trying to keep food in their mouth, donating, and then trying to be good Scientologists.
Right. Yeah.
It's a rat race.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, anyways, I sort of want to set the scene of how sort of things occurred with my situation, that I've not talked about in any of my interviews, because it's a very it's a touchy subject, I guess you could say. But I'll just sort of preface everything by saying this all came up for me again because of Miriam and what she went through and the tremendous effort that is being made to not help her, seek justice, to not help her get over this, or try to, you can't really move on from this kind of thing. It's just basically cope with it and get some justice. So like I said, this is what came up. So I sort of want to set the scene, and this all happened just before I got into Scientology. I was already in Scientology doing some basic courses. My sister and my brother-in-law got me into Scientology, just as a side note. And I was still, in my early 20s, probably around 20, 22. And I was still being a normal person. And I went out to a party on Halloween. And I got really intoxicated. And I ended up giving my keys to my boyfriend at the time. Unbeknownst to me, he was just as intoxicated as I was, but when you're intoxicated, you don't see things very clearly, right? So we get into the car on our way home, and he ends up driving down the wrong side of the road, and we get into a head-on collision. It was pretty bad. I mean, fortunately, it wasn't fatal. I got pretty banged up, bruised ribs and stuff like that. So, of course, this news gets back to the org, and they're there very quickly to help. Because
now, can I just ask a question? So this was the org was in Vancouver,
yeah,
right? Okay,
yeah.
and you said your sister and your brother-in-law were on staff at that org?
No, not yet.
Oh, not yet. Okay, all right.
Right at the time, they're still public.
Okay.
So they're still doing services. They're just doing the basic services. They haven't quite advanced down to the more intensive services.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting these what are called touch assists. I don't know if anybody knows what these are. There are these I'm trying to sort of think of an analogy. They're just assists to sort of help you feel better. I think there might be like Reiki. It's like a touch technique, right? And it's supposed to, the whole concept behind it is it's to open up nerves and stuff like that. It's just like a physical healing kind of process that they do. It doesn't work. So, but these are the beliefs. It's like there's like a whole book of these assists. There's even an assist for raising the dead. Like if somebody dies, there's like a command you give them to basically it's get back into your body.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yep.
Anyway, so I'm getting these assists to help me
Yep.
recover. And, I mean, eventually you do recover just by a natural process. Your body does
Mm-hmm.
heal itself, right? So, and so, I mean, obviously what happened because I got drunk and stuff like that, it's like, this is looked at as in Scientology as very out ethics. You don't do this kind of stuff. And you got into an accident, which means you're PTS. So there's this whole sort of package of trouble that you have, and they want to help you solve this.
So you're a potential PTS is potential trouble source.
Right.
Source of trouble.
So I'm connected to a suppressive person. It's this stupid idea of why you got into an accident. It's a silly justification for it. So there are I don't know if anybody knows, but they're the people that take your money, the bloodsuckers, the vampires in Scientology. I call them money suckers. They're called registrars.
Yep.
It sounds very nice, doesn't it? But these are the guys that take your money, right? They coerce you into taking your money. I got coerced, convinced very nicely, because you're being love bombed the whole time, to buy what is called a life repair. It's actually like it was a package. So it was life repair, which is auditing. It's about 12 and a half hours of auditing, and it's designed to help you with any troubled areas in your life. And obviously now I have a troubled area because I'm PTS and I drink too much and I get intoxicated. So I was like the perfect whatever victim there.
Victim,
So
right?
yeah. So, and don't forget, this is back in the 90s. Very early 90s.
Early 90s.
I had never heard of Scientology, ever. The internet wasn't a big thing then, at least
Right.
not to me. I mean, I was just, anyways, I'll get into that after. So I buy this life repair package, and I go in session with somebody who I don't know. He's a middle-aged man. I don't know him from Adam. And we start this session, and they ask you certain questions that are supposed to like provoke you to think of troubled areas in your life. And I, like, people have secrets, like people have not necessarily secrets, but things that they don't really want to talk about to somebody that they don't
Right.
know. Right. And
Yeah.
I, of course, was one of them. And when I was about 7 or 8 years old, this is I have to get
Trigger
my cue.
warning. Yeah.
Trigger
Trigger.
warning.
Yeah.
When I
And
was
take your
about
time. Take your
yeah,
time, honey. Take your time.
I was about 7 or 8 years old, and um my sister sexually assaulted me. Okay, breathe. Let
Breathe.
me just
Yeah.
get a sip of water for a second.
It's okay, honey. Yes.
I can't believe I'm actually doing this, to be honest with you.
You're
It's
very
okay.
brave.
So, she's 7 years older than me, and this incident happened. I was gonna say thankfully, but it only happened once, but it was enough, right? I mean, yeah, I know there are so many other people who have had much worse, and I honestly
It just
can't imagine. I can't imagine, like what Miriam said, I can't imagine what she went through. It's just like, um anyways,
but
so
but
this
that
happened. Yeah,
doesn't we don't compare. That was,
I know.
what happened to you
But,
was horrific.
yeah, but
Horrific.
these are the
Yeah.
things that go through your mind.
Yes.
Like, I'm
I
57 years old now,
Yeah.
and I can't even talk about it hardly, but it has to be talked about because it does tie into Scientology. So, I mean, this incident was like, it was kept very quiet. Yeah, you're
Just
right.
sending love. Everyone's sending you love.
Thank you.
Blow drill
It
said,
was
"Feel my finger."
Thank you, Dylan. That sort of helps.
Sending hugs. Yes,
Yeah.
we always need some
Oh,
comic
that's
relief,
Lorna,
right?
my friend. Yeah.
Oh, Lorna. Yes,
Yeah.
there you go. I love it.
Um. So everything was it was never talked about. I was told never to talk about it. Don't tell mom. Don't tell dad. And I didn't. I didn't tell anybody for many, many, many years, and I completely repressed it. Completely. And so fast forward to about 1987, 88, when I dabbled a little bit in another cult called Est. And I won't go into explaining it, but this incident came up. And they encourage you to talk about things, right? It basically, Est is considered a squirrel group by Scientology, just so you get the
Right.
relation. Like
Yeah, they're
Scientology,
similar to Scientology, right?
there is, I believe it was Werner Erhard who did some. I mean, I'm not positive on all the details, but it is, yeah, exactly. It is a ripoff of Scientology. Not exactly, but it's very Scientology like. I mean, anyways, so I go and do what's called the forum, and it's like $500 for like a weekend sort of seminar thing. And somewhere in there, it's like this thing sort of popped up for me again. And I confronted my sister about it. Um, and it's like you're sort of pushed into do it. Was, I think it was actually part of some homework. It's like, go have an uncomfortable conversation or something insane like this, right? And
Yeah.
anyways, so as she denies everything, like denies it completely. And it was like I don't know how to describe that feeling, like when you know
Yeah.
you know what
You were
happened.
7. Yeah. You remember.
Yeah, you know exactly what happened
Mhm.
and what is going on. So you spin, right? You just go like, was I dreaming this up? Did I make, was this my imagination? What the hell? So that, it just obviously re-traumatized me. So once again, down it goes into the depths of my mind, and I forget about it um, until I'm there in this session with this auditor who I don't know, and boom, it comes up again, right? Like, how can it not? You
Right.
trust these people. You trust, this is, you're educated into thinking that this is going to help you. And like, who doesn't want help? Right? Who doesn't want to get over, you know, an SA incident or some other kind of assault, right? So you put your trust into these people, and he starts
Mhm.
to ask like questions, because things apparently read on the meter, and then you have to give details, explicit details as to what happened. Like, I knew I was squirming in that chair, but you can't actually leave. You can't. Oh my god, I didn't think that was gonna react to this. You can't leave. You can't leave this fucking session until you basically have a floating needle. So you sit there and you endure this prodding and probing into your personal life by somebody who you don't know. Like, it's so crazy. I
Yeah.
I
That's not
hated.
real, not
No.
conflict. That's not any real therapist or counselor would stop when you're being triggered. Do you need a break? Do you need to get up and walk around? Do you need to leave and come back? That's just so cruel, evil.
Yeah, yeah. But this happens all the time. Like, this is what these sessions are more or less about, right? And yeah, you're right. You re-traumatize constantly. And you cannot leave. The auditor is trained to physically put you back into the chair if you try. That's why they do these TRs. The upper level TRs are you are trained to take a body and physically put it back into that chair. Yeah. Blow drill is funny. Yeah, and then after the session, you have to go to this person is called the examiner to make sure that you're happy about your session. And it's ridiculous. So this is so, I mean, that's just part of the story, right? That's the re-traumatization. And
Yeah.
The idea is that, you as is. So as ising means that it disappears. It's no longer there. You have pinpointed exactly what happened, and now it should have no effect on you whatsoever. The incident should just disappear and never be there again. And it's such bullshit, because I'm here today telling you that it didn't work. It's
Yeah.
like, it's so crazy. Anyways, so the other shitty aspect of it, and this is where the cover up comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing happens as a result of this. My sister is part of this organization. Nothing happens to her. Nothing ever happened to her. And she's moved on now. She's gone. So nothing can happen.
She
There
passed
will
away.
be Yeah, she passed away. She had a massive heart attack. She was 366 pounds. She was a massive lady. And she was a really nasty, nasty lady that what is it called? Trauma bonding. I always loved her, and it's so fucking sick to say, but you do. And I worked with her day in and day out, 7 days a week. We both were on staff together. It's just so gross. So nobody does anything. All this information is in your PC folder. I don't know if anything ever got done with her. And I mean, I was an HCO in the end. So I would know if anything would have happened to her, because all this shit would go through me, right?
Right. So here they interrogated you. They made you feel like you had pulled it in, shameful, just went, you know, deep and didn't let you leave even physically, or was ready to restrain you. And then you tell them everything. And the perpetrator, who happens to be your sister, is actually in that org, and she's ends up on staff, right? And gets
Yeah,
promoted and goes through the system, and they never pulled her in and asked her. I mean, she obviously at some point was checked for something. They didn't find anything on the needle. I
I
mean,
don't know.
never. And they knew.
I mean,
Like,
she was the yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just wondering, it must be in a file somewhere or something.
Everything in Scientology, especially in a session, is written down. The auditor is sitting there while you're talking. He's watching his meter, he's watching the needle, and he's writing everything you say. I mean, not exact words, but I mean, they're basic. It's almost like a bit of a shorthand that they'll write. There's abbreviations for stuff,
Mhm,
but it's
mhm.
like full legal size paper. They write on one half of it, then they go over, they write on the other half, they flip it over. I have probably 16 PC folders, pre-clear folders, all about this thick, about 16 of them. And I hardly did anything in Scientology. So that's all the information they have on me. All my personal information, like I keep calling them secrets, but obviously they're not secrets anymore. But, all your personal information, anything that ever happened to you, anything sexual, anything that you have disclosed is all in there. So yeah, sometimes I think about, are they going to pull out you know, some of the information that was in my PC folder? I'm sure I wouldn't put it past them.
Right.
Right. And yeah, like Dylan says, blow drill. They have your personal, that's right. They have your personnel folder, which is full of tests and your life history. And then the ethics folder. So anything that anybody else has reported on you, those would be any sort of report. Like Leah wrote that big knowledge report about Cruise and
Yes.
stuff. Yeah. So
Mhm,
those are the kind of reports that go in there. Not like about Tom Cruise, but about it.
mhm.
Like, I mean, I was written up for going for a break and having a cigarette. because there's no scheduled breaks in the schedule we had. Anyways, every person, yeah, everybody
You can
has these
click on
files.
you have admin, honey, so you can click
Oh,
on
do I?
anything you want. Yep.
Oh,
Bring it up.
all right.
You got the power.
Lifelong block. Yeah, this. And this is what people are afraid of.
Yeah.
That's what you face. Right? I mean, in all honesty, I don't think I'm big enough fish for them to do shit like that, but you can't put anything past these people,
And also the
right?
fact that you were abused. You were a victim. They basically interrogated it out of you, traumatized you, re-traumatized you, and then got every single detail, found out who it was. I'm sure you named who it was,
Of
and that
course, yeah.
person is in the org, whether it's a family member or not. And there's no victims in Scientology, so they basically treated you like you did something wrong, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just despicable, and basically covered it up. They didn't
It is covered up.
anything
It's
about it.
completely covered up. It's shoved under the carpet. It doesn't matter. And here's the viewpoint. And it's a really messed up viewpoint. It's like your case is your case. Your whatever has happened to you is because of your reactive mind, right? And
Mhm.
what my sister did was also it's her reactive mind. So they would deal with her just like that. It's like the solution for everything, every aberration, any crime anybody commits, anything like that, is to get rid of that reactive mind. That's what's going to solve all the problems.
So
And
habitual.
that's the
Did it come
viewpoint.
out? It must have come out in one of
Yeah,
your sister sessions? Do you think it did?
it could have, but you don't find out about it because nothing is handled.
And
And she
they never
never,
gave you couldn't have reported that against yourself,
I
like,
guess I could
as
have,
an adult. Yeah, as an adult, you could still have reported that to the
I could
authorities,
have.
but you
Right.
couldn't because of you were in Scientology and
Oh
she was
God,
a
you're not allowed.
Scientology. Right. Yeah.
You can't report to authorities. That's a
They should be
suppressive act.
mandated. Yeah. Oh, it's just awful. Yeah. So you weren't allowed. So you would be the suppressive person if
Yeah,
you gathered the strength to report your sister for
yeah,
what she did.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned Canada, the Vancouver org. And you're saying these systems that have been put into place. I think it was a really good idea for you to go back and explain what it excuse me, a class 5 org is, and what, how you were treated, and the money, and where it goes, and all that. It did paint the picture of where you came from. There were other things, and I'm sure being like practically an ethics handler or whatever, you end up doing later on, they know a lot of things that happen. But so what what do you think is the extent of the cover-ups? It's definitely not just your case,
Oh no.
right?
That when I look at it, mine is actually something minor. And I don't want to minimize it,
Right.
but when I look at the whole scheme of things, the whole picture, it's like I am just a little piece of sand in this huge I don't know what you want to call it, sandbox that I mean I can probably count on one hand just the ones that I know of. And I've had people reach out to me um who had these types of things happen while they were in the org by other Scientologists. This is in Canada.
Mhm.
So it's rampant throughout all of Scientology, no matter what country, no matter what org. This is what happens. I mean, I'm this is most I know these things happen also in Toronto. Now Toronto actually has a more Scientologists. There's roughly about 1,700 ish Scientologists in Canada, It's a very small portion, but there's just a tremendous amount of this cover up and these SA situations
Yeah.
from the beginning of Scientology's inception in Canada. It's like it's insane. And here's the other thing. It's like in Canada, there's no statute of limitations. You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
if you are a victim, you and are out of Scientology and want to sue your perpetrator, you bloody well should. And I mean, it's hard. Like, it's just hard talking about, my situation. So I can't imagine what other
Yeah.
people went through. But it really is time to start exposing this stuff. It's like they can't get away with this. It destroys you. I'm still
Yeah.
picking up the pieces of my life. I'm almost 60, for God's sake. I should be on a freaking beach, with a nice cocktail in my hand. But it's just like I can't, right? There's too many things as a result of being in Scientology that, your life is very different. And I had a family member say, "Well, why don't you just move on?" You
Nana
fuck.
says you should
What's
not
that?
have to relive this in public. No, you
No,
shouldn't have to. But
no.
why are you doing this? Why are
This
you
is because I want people to come out. People
Yes.
need to talk
You're
about
so
this. People,
brave. You are so brave. Thank you.
you can't, don't hide. Don't
Yeah.
hide like me, and don't reach my age. It's like
Expose.
people, it does. It needs to be exposed. It's
Yeah.
horrible, right? And I mean, in the whole scheme of things in this entire world, Scientology is a very small little piece of it. But you know what? For our for me in my life, it matters. For the other person who this was done to, it matters. It matters to every single person who was a victim. So I can't sit back and not say anything. I mean, I struggled to do this for months. Months. It's like, do I say something? Don't I? But watching Miriam and her courage, it was just like crazy. And she could get justice. The fact that, there's some barriers being put in her way is absolutely outrageous. It's just like, it's sickening. It really is sickening. Everybody who knows about it should be behind her. That's the right thing to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I've done the rant.
And blow dry. Yeah, take a little breath. We'll read some comments because you're
Okay.
getting a lot of love here. Blow gel,
Thank
and
you.
this is part of the healing. It's something I live with and try and cope and not bleed all over everyone. What you're doing, Gabrielle, helps the bleeding stop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan.
I hate crying so much.
Thank you for
Thank
standing
you.
up and saying this for all of the other survivors. Thank you, Mena. Thank you. You are super amazing, Gabrielle. Just feel the love. We're not trying to make you cry, but we all laugh together. We all cry together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Were
Yeah.
you going to change your channel's name?
Oh, you came up with the idea. It's still Triple C. It's coffee, cults, and crying.
Yeah, exactly.
Crying, cults, and graphs. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
tears. Yeah, thank you.
Cry all you need.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when I got out. Thank you.
I have a good cry every day. Let me tell you something right now.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It could be hormonal too. I'm very
Oh,
menopausal.
not true. You had to mention that.
You know,
Don't tell this guy that because I don't want him to have an excuse
yeah.
to be like, oh, it's just your hormones. That's my hubby.
I know.
Free
My
as an
poor
angel.
husband, I can't believe he's put up with me for so long. You're
Yeah.
brave. Oh, thank you, Lorna. Hang on.
Yeah, you can pop things up.
Oh, not him. Sorry. I wanted Lorna. This is my friend Lorna. We told her story on my channel. Yeah. And I just have to tell you just a little bit about her because when I got out of Scientology, she was one of the first people I actually apologized to because I actually kicked her out of the org. I had to kick her out. I had to make her go away. I couldn't permit her to do any Scientology. I mean, I think in hindsight, it
She's
might have
probably
been
thanking you, right?
it might have done her a favor, but at the time, it was a
Mhm.
pretty brutal situation. You know, it's like people want to go up the bridge. That's what they want to do, and
Flea
yeah,
Factory. I love that name, Flea Factory.
that's perfect. Thank you. Your voice gives others I hope so, and that's the point of this. It's not to sit here and cry on camera and,
Right.
and tell people, you know, how bad I feel and all that other kind
Right.
of stuff. I mean, I do, but I'm not one to like dump on people. I'm usually the dumpy. So, um but it needs to be said. Look at this is love. This is love. And I know what I put her through, you know? I know what it feels to be victimized, and I know she was hurt. She has her own horror story. So many people have horror stories. It's so awful. And I don't know if you want to sort of segue into this other thing. And it's a little bit of um what do you call it? It's a tricky situation, and it goes back to Miriam's whole story that I found extremely upsetting. Not only was what her father did to her was absolutely disgusting, but what is currently happening to her
Yeah.
is even more disgusting. And it makes me think about this thing that has been mentioned to me a few times, and has been brought up in a few conversations. And that is the idea of controlled opposition. I don't know if anybody has heard of what this means. Do you want to get into this at all, Marilyn? It's up to
Sure.
you.
Yeah, I went back and watched some of Doug Kramer's
You
one of
did?
his videos on controlled opposition. It was very hard to see my friend again, but he
Oh,
had
no.
so much to say and he was so brave. And I am seeing what he was saying now. Um I think he was right about a lot of things. And I'm not telling anyone how to think, but it definitely is something to absolutely consider. We have been talking for, the better part of a week now about this idea that this movement has been, in some ways, led, controlled by a group of people that have made some of the survivors of Scientology feel like they couldn't step out of line, feel like they couldn't say something, feel like they couldn't ask questions, feel like they couldn't tell aspects of their story because it may incriminate some of the leaders of this movement. So there's no leaders. Everyone has, their own story, and we choose to respect people based on integrity and based on our own, based on their merit. So, with that, Gabrielle, you and I were talking, and you said you were starting to think about some of these aspects with, Miriam's story and some things that you've been seeing about possible controlled opposition. So, I'm gonna give you the floor and tell me
Okay.
what your thoughts are on it.
Um, the first time I heard this idea of controlled opposition. And just so people know, I'll give you I have a definition. Anyways, defining things in Scientology is a big deal. It actually helped me grow my vocabulary. It's maybe one of the few benefits I got. So it's controlled opposition is a strategy in which an individual, organization, or movement is covertly controlled or influenced by a third party. In this case, the third party would be Scientology. And the controlled entity's true purpose is something or other than its publicly stated, that it's stated opposition. So basically, do you kind of get that? You've got, this is how I see it to some degree. Okay. I'm not, I can't make any real confirmed decisions from this, but I'm a bit suspect here. So the third party would be Scientology. You have this movement happening of exposing Scientology. And then you have these other people who have left Scientology. And they would be the controlled opposition. So basically, the controlled entity, which would be these ex-Scientologists, serve a role of mass deception, surveillance, and or in other cases, political or social manipulation. I don't know. I see some manipulation going on. I don't know if anybody else sees it. Maybe I'm paranoid. Maybe I'm just a big conspiracy theorist. I don't know. And in most cases, it's control. In most cases, the controlled party is portrayed as being in opposition to the interests of the controlled party. So they're in opposition of Scientology. We can see that, right? They came out and they spoke up again. I mean, it could be, when I think about this whole thing, I think, well, there's this situation and how could they do that? They seem very honest, but you don't know. Maybe they're being manipulated as well. I don't know. This is just something I think needs to be thrown out there. Right. That's right. Mike was the head of OSA. Guys, like OSA infiltrated the U.S. government. It was the biggest infiltration. It was called Operation Snow White. They didn't only infiltrate the U.S., they infiltrated the RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Ontario Provincial Police as well, and then another government, I think it was the Attorney General's office in Ontario. And this was back in 1980s. They were in court for 10 years to fight this. If they're capable of infiltrating the US government, I'm just saying, what are they really capable of? They can do a lot. They have a lot of money. Louder for people. Thank you. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of lawyers. So I don't know. And then, there was Jerry Armstrong. I don't know if anybody knows about this guy, but he was like numero uno whistleblower. He was L. Ron Hubbard's personal archivist. He was the one that found all the truth about Hubbard and his background and all the lies. He found his diaries. He found family information. And he presented this to the church and they shut him down and he left. And he was fair gamed so incredibly heavily. Like it was like to that Paulette Cooper extent, right? Talk about ruining him utterly. I lived in the same town when I was in BC as him. I had him over several times. We would talk for hours. This guy knows what went on. He was so badly fair gamed. I think it was Kelly Copter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It was Kelly Copter that showed that little clip. You saw the reaction that he had for that Mike Rinder had for Jerry Armstrong.
Mhm.
Jerry has asked so many times to speak to Mike to try and clear the air. He will not answer him. He's sent him like emails, you name it. There was never an apology to this man that he utterly ruined.
He was
It,
he was disregarded as, crazy, a fruitcake, I believe the word was.
yeah,
And you know him
loopy.
personally, he's not a
I know him
fruitcake.
personally. He's not a fruitcake, but the guy has been fair game for so long. He's in his 70s now. He's actually a marathon runner. He's in incredible shape. But and he's the sweetest man. He really is. But you know, like he's told me some stuff. And he was going to the FBI about Scientology. He was a massive threat. They did not want him to release this information that he had,
Mhm.
right? Because it was damning. It was damning evidence. It was exposing crimes. They shut this guy down so hard. I mean, he can't even enter into the US. He would be arrested
Mhm.
because, you
Well,
know, so many lawsuits,
because
and
NDAs and all that.
he had to
Right.
sign NDAs,
Yep.
and
Yep.
he's violated them because he's an activist. He
Mhm.
spoke out.
Do you think part
Anyways,
of can I just ask you a question? Do you think
of
part
course.
of this, possible controlled
Yeah.
opposition could also, be, a controlled narrative as well? Because, I as I was talking to Liz Gale the other day, I was saying, she said, "Well, what do you think as being a never in, what are you seeing?" And I was just looking back to 2017 when I started watching the Aftermath show, which very much helped me. And Mike, Mark, Claire, all of them, really helped me by telling their stories and to deconstruct what happened to me. I don't take that away from them. I don't take away, Mark and Claire. I'm sure personally they're lovely people, but it doesn't mean that these behaviors are okay. And it doesn't mean that we have to just sign off on everything that everyone is telling us to say, to think, to do, to not do. Jerry Armstrong is a hot button issue. Anybody brings up Jerry Armstrong and it's like, whoa, um, like Debbie Cook. Um, this young lady, Bianca, was talking about how Debbie Cook
Yeah.
gave her nightmares for years.
Yeah.
I I mean, on the Aftermath show, it was pretty much presented that Debbie Cook was best thing since sliced bread. She did do some good things. She did do some good things, but um,
So she
yeah,
got paid off.
Kelly Copter. Jerry doesn't seem crazy to me. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, um, we heard about Debbie's abuses against her, but what about her abuses?
Yeah.
And that brings, to the subject of, you know, people being complicit. And whether you were in a
Yeah.
cult, out of a cult, we're in a cult, there's still consequences. There's still having to make amends and to pay the piper and to be honest in transparency,
Mm-hmm.
and not have control of the narrative of the public funds, and using an aftermath lawyer to respond to a an advocate for a victim that sent a personal letter and just disregarding her as a rabbit. We got somebody named Blown for Good saying the name rabbit's bad. I mean, come on, people.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm just going to call it the way I see it. I feel like it is a misuse of power and funds.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, lawyers, I've dealt with quite a few lawyers, and there are some that are okay, but a lot of them they have a chip on their shoulder. So they do have a holier than thou type of attitude. And when I read that letter, I was like, wow, that is so OSA letter. That is just, it's like, it's so degrading. It's so
It's juvenile.
condescending.
It's
But
unprofessional,
yeah,
idiotic, and juvenile. It's just who is their PR person? I don't get
right.
it. Not
It, it,
not a
it isn't,
professional.
Right. I mean, PR in Scientology is a whole other thing, right? Hubbard wrote gobs and gobs of stuff about how to do PR and shit like that. And honestly, that was just it was just something that I would see from like the narcissist who ran the Vancouver org when I was just before I left, Peter Byrne. He was
Mhm.
such a narcissist, such a dick. It's like at any time he would just jump on the opportunity to degrade you and be completely condescending, you know? Like when my husband and I were having some problems, they tried to rip my husband and I apart, right? But you know, here's a comment. He says, "Oh, don't worry. You know, you're cute. You can find another guy." I was like, "What? Do you say that to somebody who's been married for 20 years?" But you know, that's the kind of shit that people say in Scientology. It's so gross. And that letter is so Scientology.
But they're not
Especially,
Scientologists. They're not Scientologists.
oh honey, I honestly don't think that letter was written by an actual lawyer. I think somebody who was an ex-Scientologist or even a Scientologist had their hand in that. It's like there's always a dig. There's always a dig when it comes to these narcissists. It's like they always have to like poke that knife in just a little farther, right?
Well,
It's
you
just
know,
really
I'm owning
gross.
it. I'm owning it. I made some keyboard warrior merch, everybody. If you want to check it out on my channel,
Yeah,
it's a dog lying down with a keyboard and some fleas jumping off him. I love
that's
it. I'm
cute.
so it's just, you know, that's my therapy is just making fun of this stuff because who, you know, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly. So here's another example of why I'm
story.
hey Mark, you know Mark's Hungarian, right? Like
Yes.
me.
Yes.
We're
I
gonna
love
we're
Mark.
gonna I'm gonna have to talk to Mark and we're gonna have to talk about goulash and stuff.
There you go.
And Scientology and goulash. Um, there's another thing that I saw on it was on Nora's community page
Yep.
where she kept Mark's
She
really
reposted it. Yeah.
strange rant.
Yeah.
Um,
5-page letter. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing that a lot of Scientology they like to toot their horn. They're somewhere in there. I don't like to toot my horn, but you know, and that was a very odd letter. But anyway, so in her comment, Nora says, and I'm going to quote here. I like to quote things, so it's not just my words. So she
Mhm.
says, I'm just taking a little snippet of it. Well, if this is all one gigantic OSA operation being led, long con style, by the actual head of OSA, I'm sorry to have to be the kid shouting the emperor has no clothes, but just take a look for yourself. There's suspicion there. And she would know more.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanna say as a never in, I don't, you know, I don't like conspiracy theories, but if there's people that have a history and are asking these questions, raising these concerns, then,
Yeah,
you know, it's okay with me. I'm just saying I can't speak to that because I honestly don't know
right.
anything about it.
But
Yeah.
for me, coming from an ex-Scientology background, I
Yeah.
look at this stuff and I have all this other information. And then there's Doug talking about it. There's Jerry. These are all very credible people to me,
Mhm.
right? They haven't just suddenly showed up in the scene. Jerry Armstrong has been around, like he got into Scientology when I was born.
Mhm.
You know, he's been around it. He keeps his finger on the pulse. He was actually married to Janice Gillum Grady's sister, by the way. You know, just a little bit of Scientology trivia for you.
Mhm.
So he was in the inner circles. He was on the ship. He worked directly with Hubbard. You know, it's so hard to disregard this stuff for me. And you know, I spent years disregarding the red flags when I was in Scientology. I think I learned my lesson. I'm not going to ignore red flags anymore. And I think
Can we address something?
here,
Buffy H. She trying to be heard. She has
Yeah.
several things that I starred. Buffy H. Mark was trying to defend himself from all of these false accusations. Now they are OSA. Wow. Good God. This is so shameful. I don't think you said Mark and Claire are OSA.
No,
No, you
I
didn't
didn't
say
say that.
that. She said his letter was amazing. Not sure why he took it down. And I'm just giving other people a
Yeah.
voice, you know. Mark and Claire are absolutely not part of that control group. They're good people. Didn't say they weren't good people. It's a shame that the attacks have been put on them.
Right. But
Um,
Buffy, how do you know that? It's like Serge says, where are the receipts? Just saying.
mhm.
I
Going down the
understand.
road of paranoia. Yeah, I understand you saying that, but I mean, Buffy, I don't know if you're an ex-Scientologist, if you know more than Gabrielle would. I don't. I'm not making any assumptions at all. But if you have more information that refutes what others are saying, such as Gabrielle, would definitely. I want everyone from all angles to have a voice.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? You can believe what you want, but also do your homework. Start putting pieces together. Start asking more questions.
Yeah, no one was attacking them until Mark's diatribe. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, all I did was wear all my Blown for Good merch. I was drinking out of my cracker cup and I invited Mark to come on and answer some questions. That's all I did.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, there's
I'm not a random spokeshole. I actually was a huge
right.
supporter of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? It takes courage to do what they were doing as well. But what was the motivation? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Mark wrote a incredible book about his life in Scientology. And I mean, I know Claire's working on it, but Claire was like second from the top in
Mhm.
Scientology. Like, there, like, I know how badly I was brainwashed and how I felt. I was as dedicated as they come. I was willing to even leave my husband if that's what I had to do. I was like, I was hardcore. When you're in a position, when you're in the ethics officer and in HCO, like, you have to toe the party line. You're made to do it. I had to do it, or I wouldn't have survived. And it's like you put people through the ringer. Like, it's hard to explain the magnitude of coercive control that's in there, and how mind-bending it is. Like, I still wonder, do I still think like a Scientologist sometimes? It's like, you have, you know so, like, I'm just trying to say, these people were in there for a long time, and they were born, like Claire and Mike were both born in it. I don't know. Like, you believe you're doing what's right. Like, 110%. It's like, this is the only way the planet is gonna survive, is if Scientology takes over. It's crazy. Like, I look back and I go, "What? Like, who was that?" But it's a cult. That's
Mhm.
what else can I say?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing quite a bit, honestly, of culty behavior. One of them is the deflecting thing. When Miriam is asking a question about an affidavit, right? She gets either ignored, insulted, attacked, and then after this letter that was not to the Aftermath Foundation, which ended up answering, but with their lawyer, it was not to Mark and Claire. Maya says the fact that they refuse to say anything about anything doesn't make it better. Just putting up that weird post and then taking it down again, and not talking about the issues, talking about their past, which was wonderful. They've done wonderful work. No one is taking that away from them.
Yeah,
Nobody is. But like Liz Gale said, if someone's house is on fire, which is a very hard thing for analogy for me to talk about, but I've done a
yeah,
lot of work, so I can say it. someone's house is on fire, right? And they cry out for help, and someone says, they're like, look over there. Oh, well, I don't like your outfit. You know, my house is on fire.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
please focus on Miriam? What about Miriam? What about all of the Miriams? And can I just go on a little rant for a second? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let her rip.
So we're talking about fighting Scientology, the wars against Scientology, and that is true. There are people on the front lines. Sometimes the front lines change a little bit, right? Sometimes they're journalists, sometimes they're TikTokers, sometimes, you know, they're all on the front lines fighting Scientology. If you think of it as a war, right? Wars also have other aspects,
Yeah.
that need attention, like the wounded, like
Mhm.
the refugees, like the people that have devoted their lives, that have been discarded and called crazy fruitcakes, like people who can't get affidavits, like people who have been SA'd, people that have been abused, like you, Gabrielle, and have
Mhm.
not been able to even seek justice. So what? They're not, because that's not the front lines of fighting Scientology. Nobody can let these people have a voice. You're
Right.
letting OSA win. You be quiet. You're counterproductive. You're the enemy. You're a bad person because you're asking questions. No, no. Look at the wars, right? We've got veterans that have given. I'm trying to draw a little bit of an analogy here.
Yeah.
We've got veterans that have given their lives, and they've suffered trauma and they've suffered PTSD. A lot of them can't function in the real world. The Veterans Administration sometimes F's up and they don't give them the services they need. And who helps them? Advocates
Right.
outside. Okay. So we've got Miriam. She's like a veteran. She's like a veteran. She's not getting the help she needs. Who's she going to turn to? Somebody
Right.
named Rabbit, who is a social worker. Yes, her real name is Alex. I don't know her last name, and I don't want to because I don't want crazies going after her.
Yeah.
She has every right
Exactly.
to call herself Rabbit, as much as Blown for Good has every right to call himself Blown for Good. I'm just saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
but that's what we do. We talk about her name and not the message. We're going to fixate on her name and discredit
Yeah.
her because of
Yeah.
a damn name? No. We're not
It,
going to blindly follow anybody. We're not going
yeah.
to blindly follow Aaron. We're not going to blindly follow anyone. Every one of these people, oh shit, 246 people. Sorry, guys, I'm yelling in your ear. You all
It's
have
okay.
your
It's
own
okay.
autonomous mind.
Yeah.
Don't take my word for it. Don't. So,
Yeah.
yes, part of this fight is to take care of our wounded. Take care of the wounded people.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's all. And then I'm going to stop. Thank you for letting me get that out. Thank you.
That was an excellent rant.
It's
That was
been bottling
perfect.
up.
Yeah. And it
I
needs to
care.
be said. It needs to be said. You can say it. And this is the thing. I don't say a lot of stuff because I'm afraid to say it. And you're because you know you're going to get attacked, and it's not
Well,
just
I'm
going to
being
be
called a
from
disgusting
Scientology.
opportunist. Right. I'm being called a disgusting opportunist. And you know what? Maybe I am disgusting and maybe I am an opportunist. You know
No,
why? I'm an
you're not.
opportunist because I'm taking this opportunity to help in any way I can, you
Yeah,
know, to say, I see you. I hear
yeah.
you, Gabrielle. I hear you.
Thank you,
And your
Marilyn.
voice is important.
Yeah, as is everyone else's. You know, I mean, I'm nothing special here. You know, I'm just a wee little Canadian out here in very cold Ontario, and I don't like it. But anyways, you know, you gotta speak up. You I don't know, or write to somebody or do something.
Yeah.
I cannot sit back anymore and just be complacent. And my family doesn't want me to do this. They don't want any more heartache. My
Yeah.
nephews won't even watch because they're so traumatized. You know, it's just like it goes so deep. The tentacles of trauma and damage is just I cannot believe it. It just
Yeah.
blows my mind, you know? My parents who've passed on were also traumatized by this. They saw how this cult engulfed us and ruined the family. So yes, people, if you can, speak up. If you can't, I'm here, Marilyn's here. Reach out. We can tell the stories. We can bring it to somebody's attention. I just want to be a vessel for this. I was a vessel for Scientology and I did shit. You do stuff to people and nobody can tell me that they didn't do shit to other people.
Yeah.
You do. That is the freaking nature of a cult. The shit just trickles down. You are a cult member, you do culty things,
Yes.
no matter what. No, there's no innocent
I did
party.
too.
I'm
No.
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes it kind of pisses me off where I see people that don't say anything and just go hide away. But that is their choice too. I'm just not like that. It's not in my DNA. It's in my DNA to be a shit disturber. And honestly, being in a cult is not good for a shit disturber because you get shut down.
Absolutely. I was a terrible cult
So
member. Yes.
yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
got in trouble all the
You
time.
have, like, your friend Lorna, you have made amends with her and she
Yeah,
forgives you. And now you
I
can be
know.
friends. And she didn't
Yeah,
have to. And
I know.
yeah. And Rhonda W says, Gabrielle, my fellow Canadian Ontarian,
Yeah.
hug, sending hugs. You have a
Thank
lot of
you.
support. You have a lot of support here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
brave.
just listen to what the people are saying who have been out
Yes.
here for a long time, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
do your homework, do your due diligence, and then decide. I don't. I hate. When I heard what this interaction between Miriam and Mike was, I was sick to my stomach. Mike was my hero. He was like, oh my God, finally somebody like really taken the church to task, you know, exposing on a super scale, you know, and it's like you sit back and you go, what is going on? The stuff, it's like even with the whole thing with Aaron, I was kind of like, oh, I don't know, well,
Mhm.
there's a certain amount of professionalism when you're on a board or a committee or whatever. And if
Mhm.
he's sort of screwed up a few
Yeah,
times, it's like,
he did.
okay,
He
fine.
did. Absolutely did. Yes.
So what? We're all human, and when you're in a
Well, if
cult, you
he's a
don't.
liability, is Mark Render also a liability?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either. I just,
I venture to
I,
say yes, but according to those standards, I venture to say
yeah.
yes. But I'm not on the board,
Anyways,
and I
I
want to
mean, we
be.
can
I don't want to
beat
be.
this. Yeah.
So you
So,
have the clicker. If you want to take
okay.
any questions, I'm just going to excuse myself for a minute because I am a middle-aged lady who drank way too much tea. So I'll be right
I
back.
know. And I've been drinking a lot of coffee, so that's cool.
Okay. If you want to click
Okay,
some
here.
and answer, you can.
Yeah, I'll show some. Maya, aka Allison in the Art Supply Hoarderland. Wow, that's an amazing name. The disgusting letter from the lawyer and MR's mail to Miriam doesn't leave anything to the imagination. Horrible words straight from themselves. Yeah. Yeah, that's not cool. That was shocking to me. It really was. I'm trying. Oh, there's Mark. Oh, Jennifer. Jennifer, I had a long talk with her. I wanted to actually pull something up from her. Where is she? Where did you go? Oh, this thing is moving very quickly. Wow, I'm not used to this. Oh, here's something. Cast 1954. Oh, it's the same year my husband was born. Your analogy about this is about Marilyn. Your analogy about the military is so true. As a Vietnam veteran, I watched soldiers totally humiliated in front of the unit and discharged because of PTSD and never given services. Yeah. Oh, I could give you stories about the Canadian military. It's absolutely disgusting. I know somebody who is in it, and yeah, they're not treated very well either. Um, who else do we have here? Okay, let's go down here. Here's a rebel. Joe Spring, and I'm not even going to attempt that one. I've never followed rules, so I've never been a joiner. It's a great gift my father gave me. Oh boy, you're one lucky girl. I wasn't really a follower either. I never actually had hung out with a whole bunch of friends and stuff like that. But the way Scientology was presented to me when I was young, it was like tools, like a self-help kind of thing, right? Very innocently presented, and at the time, um, when it was presented to me, I had gone through a really bad breakup to a guy that I thought I was going to marry, and I was devastated. Sort of like your first major upset or trauma in life, and somebody was there to provide a solution so it would never happen again, and that was very appealing to me. Let's see. Anyone else see? What is this? Jen. Oh, Fleaboard, wherever everyone now sees the tarnished MR crown is. He's done good, but his actions towards Miriam are vile, I guess you want to say. Yeah. Oh, here's a interesting thought too. Where did she go? Yeah, same with Mark and Claire if they're defending him. Yeah, well, that's what people, I think it's human nature to defend those that you are loyal to. And when you're in a cult, you become what is it? Is it not trauma dependent? What is that? Like you support,
Codependent, yeah,
yeah,
or
those who are
well,
traumatizing you,
yeah.
or
Oh,
those who
like
join in your traumatizing.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like when Religious Technology Center is at the very top of Scientology. Um, I I'm like way low down, but I've had dealings with Religious Technology Center people, so RTC members, such as Claire, and trauma bonding, exactly. And they would send out what are called missions. And if it's an RTC mission, it's a very serious situation, just so you know. And
Mhm.
this particular situation, when they sent two RTC members, I ended up being the ED because they basically emptied out the organization. They kicked out a bunch of people who they thought were not appropriate, and they handled me until I was willing to take the executive director post. My husband was opposed to it, and they handled him as well. They put him through what are called lower conditions. It's basically punishment. It's reprogramming punishment techniques that they use so that you will comply. It's threats, it's punishment, and he didn't have a
That's what they
choice.
do in North Korea. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. It's funny when I got out and I started talking to my dad about it, who was he escaped from the revolution in Hungary. And I was telling him exactly what Scientology was like. He says this sounds like Nazis. It sounds like communism. And I hardly even told him. Like it's like when you tell people what these techniques are, who have had past experience with it as well, like my dad did, they know exactly what it's all about. It's
Mhm.
complete and utter control, and mind control and physical control and manipulation. Trauma
Absolutely.
bonding.
Power to survivors. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So, your email address
Yeah.
is escaping
The
the
cultiverse.
cultiverse. I'm gonna make sure I spell it right. Escaping
Yeah.
the cultiverse A
Cultiverse A.
at
It's
Gmail.
long. At gmail.com. Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm putting. Let me sure I spell it right.
I'm going to put something up real
Cultiverse.
quick here.
Okay. Go ahead. Okay. That's so
That's
I
not the
posted it in
one.
both chats.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're
Go ahead.
sneaky. So the chat moves so fast. I saw somebody that said something.
Oh, you know.
There it is. There it is. So the email was sent in the chat. So Chippy
Yeah.
Bucky.
You don't
There you go.
necessarily want dirt, but if you have information, important
Yeah.
information, fine.
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
we don't want any character assassinations or dirt as far as gossip. If you have some information for Gabrielle, that's her email address. Escaping the cultiverse A at gmail.com.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you start? Because I mean, this thing goes so fast.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think most of the things that I started, we pretty much
Covered.
touched on. Yeah. So I think that this has been, we've been going for almost an hour and a half. I think that it's probably a good time to just take a little break, a little breather. If anyone has any questions and comments, you can leave them in the comment section of the either video. And if it's anything for Gabby and it's on my channel, I'll make sure she sees it.
Thank
You
you.
have Gabrielle's email address. You can send her an email. You're always welcome to email me, coffeecultsandcrafts@gmail.com. And thank you so much, Gabrielle.
Thanks,
You are
Marilyn.
so brave. And
Thank you.
I'm always here, on and off. I am
I
on
know
and
that.
off line or on and off the screen. I'm the same person. And I just really admire you. And I'm glad to call
Aw.
you a friend. I'm honored to call you my
And
friend. So,
I feel exactly the same way, Marilyn. You are one tough cookie. Let me tell you, you are one tough
well,
cookie,
I
and
think
your
that's what cults do to you.
compassion.
They make you tough.
Yeah, but and with lots of sprinkles of compassion and a lot of love. And honestly, it's really what's needed because a lot of us cult survivors, we're very broken and we're very tender. And yeah, so just yeah, be kind to an ex-cult member. That's all I can say. Lots of love
Be
to
kind to a
everybody.
cult survivor today. Yes.
I
And
think
there's
we need
many
t-shirts.
forms. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
many forms of cult survivors. Cult of one, you know, narcissistic abusers are unfortunately
yeah,
not
and I
uncommon.
yeah, and I hope that there's some takeaway from this for other people, that's I yeah, this isn't just for me. I mean, it helps, but I'm telling you, it really is for other people, and I just want other people to understand what went on and to try and do something. And if you're afraid to talk, I'm here, Marilyn's here. I'm approachable. You can talk to me. It's totally cool with me, and I'll help in any way I can because I know what it's like. I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you
Thank
everyone
you.
for listening. And we will see you soon. Have a
Mwah.
great day. Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.